In 1966, the year it became a country, Botswana was one of the poorest places on earth. How poor? Poorer per person than the Congo. Poorer than Nigeria. It had about 12 kilometers of paved road in the entire nation and 22 people with a university degree. Total. Then, 1 year later, geologists found it, one of the richest diamond deposits ever discovered, buried under the desert. And here is where you already know how this ends, because you have seen it 100 times. A dirt-poor country strikes it rich underground, and the treasure becomes a curse. The coups, the stolen billions, the currency that eats itself. That is the resource curse, and it has wrecked petrostates and mineral states across the planet. Except Botswana did the opposite. It took the exact thing that destroyed its neighbors and used it to become one of the richest countries in Africa. Put that on a chart, and it barely looks real. This is Botswana's income per person from independence to today. It starts down here on the floor, under $100 a year, one of the lowest figures anywhere on the planet. And then it climbs, and it does not really stop. Past $1,000 by the early 80s. Past $3,000 by 1990. Over $7,000 today, and it briefly touched more than $8,000 a couple of years ago. That is roughly an 80-fold increase in a single lifetime. For decades, Botswana was, by this measure, the fastest-growing economy in the entire world. Faster than Japan, faster than South Korea, faster than China. A country most people could not find on a map quietly ran the best growth streak on Earth. To feel how far that climb is, you have to start where it started. At independence, Botswana was not just poor, it was almost nothing on paper. 12 kilometers of tarred road in a country the size of France. 22 citizens with a university degree. Around 100 who had even finished secondary school. There was barely a civil service, barely a budget. The place was so overlooked that its former colonial ruler had run it, on the cheap, from a town in a different country. This was the raw material. Not a promising economy, with a bit of bad luck. One of the least developed nations on the continent, with almost none of the machinery a modern state is supposed to have. Which is exactly why what happened next was supposed to be impossible. Because normally, this is the trap. When a poor country suddenly finds oil or diamonds or gold, the windfall tends to poison it, and economists have a name for it. The resource curse. The money floods in, and it flows to whoever controls the ground. A strong man, a family, an army. So there's everything to fight over and nothing to build. The currency shoots up, which quietly kills off farming and factories, until the whole country depends on that one hole in the ground. Look right next door. The Congo sits on some of the richest mineral deposits in the world, and it has stayed one of the poorest countries on earth. Nigeria found oil and got corruption and stagnation. Same script over and over. The treasure arrives, and the country gets poorer at everything except digging. Botswana found the biggest treasure of all. By every rule, it should have been the worst case, not the miracle. So what did Botswana actually find? In 1967, 1 year after independence, De Beers geologists tracked tiny diamond fragments across the desert to their source and hit a diamond pipe near a place called Orapa, one of the largest by area ever found. The mine opened in 1971, and more followed, including Debswana, which would become the single richest diamond mine on the planet by value. This was not a modest bit of luck. This was a fire hose of money aimed at a country that, a few years earlier, could not pave a road. Every ingredient of the curse was now in place. An enormous mineral windfall, a brand new government with almost no institutions, and a foreign mining giant that had carved up half of Africa before. The fuse was lit. What happened next was a choice. Here is how a poor, brand new country kept the money from destroying it. 3 moves, done in the right order. Move 1, it owned the deal. Instead of handing the diamonds to a foreign company for a royalty, Botswana formed a 50-50 partnership with De Beers called Debswana. The government owns half of the diamonds. Half the profit flows to the state, not to a family or a firm. Move 2. It saved the money instead of spending it. A huge share of the diamond revenue went into a national savings account, the Pula Fund, run by the central bank. Money set aside for the future rather than blown on palaces. And move 3, the one that made the other two hold, the institutions. Botswana kept holding real, multi-party elections, kept a working civil service, kept corruption low. The windfall landed on a system built to handle it. Own the resource, save the money, keep the rules. That is the whole trick. And when a windfall lands on a system that works, this is what it looks like. This is Botswana's growth rate, year by year, in the decades after independence. Those are not normal numbers. In the 1970s, the economy grew by an average of around 14% a year, some years above 20. To put that in perspective, a booming rich economy grows 2 or 3%. China, at its most explosive, grew about 10. Botswana beat all of them for years on end because every new mine and every saved pula got poured back into roads, clinics, and schools. The 12 kilometers of tarmac became thousands. This is the resource curse running in reverse. The money didn't hollow out the country, it built one. Growth this fast, sustained this long, is one of the rarest things in economics. Botswana simply did it, and almost no one was watching. But the real proof is in the comparison. So let's put the neighbors on the same chart. Here is income per person for 3 countries, all starting in 1966. This is DR Congo, sitting on a fortune in minerals. This is Nigeria, floating on oil. And this is Botswana, which, remember, started poorer than both of them. Watch what happens. The Congo flatlines, Nigeria close, and Botswana goes vertical. By today, the average person in Botswana produces around $7,500 a year, about 11 times a Congolese citizen, and roughly 7 times a Nigerian. 3 countries, all rich in something buried underground. 2 got the curse. 1 got the miracle. And the only real difference was not what they found. It was what they did with it. Now, before this turns into a fairy tale, the honest part, because Botswana never actually solved the deepest problem. It escaped the curse. It did not escape the dependence. To this day, diamonds are still roughly 80% of the country's exports and about 1/3 of the government's income. Almost every dollar of that 80-fold rise, every school, and every clinic still traces back to the same holes in the ground. And that means the whole success story is chained to one thing Botswana does not control: the price of diamonds. When the world buys diamonds, Botswana thrives. When it doesn't, everything wobbles. The institutions are real, the savings are real, but underneath the miracle, the country is still, in the end, one commodity, one market, one price. And recently, that price turned. Here is what that looks like when the price turns. Over the last couple of years, the world's demand for natural diamonds slumped. Buyers drifting to cheaper lab-grown stones, and a soft market on top of it. For a country that is 4/5 diamonds, that is not a bad quarter. That is the whole economy. Diamond exports fell by roughly 1/3 in a single year. And in 2024, Botswana's economy did something it had barely done in 60 years. It shrank, a contraction of about 3%, with income per person sliding back from its peak. The Pula Fund, the savings account built for exactly this, is being drawn down to cushion the blow. This is the flip side of the whole story. The same concentration that made the miracle possible is what makes it fragile. Own one incredible resource, and you rise and fall with it. So separate the 2 things this story is really about. There is the stock, what Botswana permanently built, and it is enormous. A functioning democracy in a rough neighborhood. One that, in 2024, peacefully voted out a party that had ruled for 58 years, and the power simply changed hands. Roads, universities, one of the cleanest governments on the continent, a middle class that did not exist in 1966. That transformation is real, and no diamond slump can unbuild it. And then there's the flow, the yearly income, still gushing out of a single resource, still rising and falling with a price set in Antwerp and New York. The flow is what wobbles. The stock is what lasts. Botswana's genuine miracle was never the diamonds. The Congo had diamonds too. It was turning a temporary flow of treasure into a permanent stock of a country. Every poor country that strikes it rich is handed the same test, and almost all of them fail it. The oil, the gold, the diamonds, they were never the answer because the Congo had more and stayed poor. What Botswana proves is uncomfortable and simple. The resource is just the fuel. Whether it builds a country or burns one down depends entirely on who owns it, whether it gets saved or stolen, and whether the rules hold when the money floods in. Botswana got those three things right and turned 12 kilometers of road into one of Africa's success stories. If you want more of the machinery that decides whether a country gets rich or just gets robbed, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.